Hello and welcome to Tech Talks with Kinsoft.
Great to be here.
Yeah, it's late February 2026 and I think it's safe to say the year has kicked off with just a massive deafening wake-up call for Australian data security.
Oh, absolutely. It really has.
Like if you were one of those optimistic people who thought, "Hey, maybe things will quiet down after the chaos of the last few
Yeah.
years." Well, the first 8 weeks of 2026 have effectively looked at that optimism and said, absolutely not.
It really has been a relentless start to the year. I mean, I've been staring at the reports on my desk all week, and the sheer volume is overwhelming.
It's nuts.
We aren't just seeing more attacks. We're seeing a shift in tactics, a shift in targets, and frankly, a shift in the level of aggression from threat actors.
Yeah,
It just feels different this time.
it definitely feels personal, and that is exactly what we're going to unpack for you today. Our mission on this show is simple. We take a huge stack of recent sources. So we're talking news reports, company statements, forum discussions, breach notifications.
The whole lot.
Exactly. And we extract the critical nuggets of knowledge for you. We aren't just reading headlines. We are really doing a deep dive into what this means for your data, your business, and honestly, your sanity.
And for today's discussion, we are focusing on a specific case study that I think it really illustrates this new reality. The Prosura data breach that came to light in January.
Right.
Because on the surface, it might sound like just another corporate press release, an insurer gets hit, data gets taken. But the specific details of how these attackers behaved are crucial.
It is a wild story.
Ah.
But we aren't stopping there. We're going to broaden the scope and look at how Prosura fits into this chaotic start to 2026.
Yeah, including that massive UX fintech breach that just broke.
Exactly. We are asking the big question here. What does this mean for anyone trusting companies with their ID?
It's a heavy topic, but an important one.
So let's get right into it. First up, let's establish the facts regarding Prosura.
Okay.
Who are they? Because I feel like a lot of people might not recognize the name immediately.
That's a very fair point. Prosura is an Australian financial services company. They specialize in rental vehicle excess insurance.
Right.
You might actually know them better by their trading name, which is Hiccup.
Right, Hiccup. But here's where it gets really tricky for the average consumer. Prosura is a key partner for the comparison site Vroom Vroom Vroom.
Exactly. And that right there is your first big lesson in supply chain complexity.
Yeah.
A lot of people who booked rental cars through Vroom 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 ended up having their data sitting with Prosura.
Even if they didn't know it.
Even if they didn't realize they were dealing with Prosura directly at all. You book on one site, but your data lives on another.
So unauthorized access was confirmed. Walk us through the timeline here. How did this actually go down?
Well, it happened right as everyone was recovering from New Year's Eve. Prosura detected unauthorized access to their IT systems on January 3rd.
Okay.
And to their credit regarding containment, they moved fast. They took their policy purchase portals and their claims management systems offline immediately to stop the bleeding.
But then we get into the numbers game.
Mhm.
And looking at these reports, this is where it gets incredibly confusing for people.
Ooh, yeah.
Because security researchers estimated about 300,000 individuals were affected, which is a substantial number.
It is.
But then the attackers went onto a data leak forum and claimed they had, get this, 98 million lines of records.
Right.
98 million sounds absolutely catastrophic.
It does, and it's designed to sound exactly that way. But we have to be very careful with what I like to call hacker math.
Hacker math. I love that term. Explain that for us.
So that 98 million figure likely refers to raw database rows. We are talking about server logs, transaction history entries, system events.
Okay, so not individual people.
Exactly. Think about it this way. If you are a customer, you might have one entry for your name, another for your policy start date, another for a payment log, another for a change of address.
Right.
So one single person could generate hundreds of lines of data.
I see. So 98 million lines does not equal 98 million people.
Precisely. It's marketing spin. Threat actors inflate these numbers to increase pressure on the victim company.
To scare them.
To scare them, and to make the data look way more valuable to other criminals on the dark web. They are trying to sell a product after all.
That makes sense.
However, I do want to be clear. For the 300,000 people who were actually affected, that distinction doesn't make it any less painful.
No, absolutely not. And speaking of painful, let's talk about the tactics. Because this wasn't just a steal the data and run situation.
No, it wasn't.
This is where the story gets chilling and, frankly, where it deviates from the standard script we're used to seeing.
This is the part that really stands out in the 2026 landscape. The threat actors didn't just exfiltrate the database. They used the stolen email addresses to contact the victims directly.
I saw this. We pulled a Geek Zone forum thread for this deep dive, and there was a user, Kiwi Harry, who shared the actual email they received from the hackers.
Yes.
And it wasn't your standard phishing email full of bad grammar and typos. It was surprisingly coherent.
It was incredibly manipulative. The hackers claimed that they had originally tried to contact Prosura to patch this issue and claim a bug bounty.
Just to clarify for the listener, a bug bounty is usually a legitimate program, right? Where ethical hackers get paid for finding security holes?
Correct. That's a standard industry practice. But these guys were framing themselves as helpful researchers who were simply ignored by the company.
Right.
They claimed Prosura wouldn't listen, so they were essentially forced to go public to the customers.
Right. I actually have the quote right here from that email. They wrote, "Your trust has already been broken. The company failed to act even after being warned." They basically tried to turn the customers into a weapon against the company's own HR team.
It's pure psychological warfare. By framing themselves as frustrated bug bounty hunters who were forced to leak the data, they try to shift the moral blame entirely onto the victim company.
That's insidious.
It is. They urged customers to pressure Prosura. It creates mass panic, which puts immediate leverage on the victim organization to pay up or negotiate.
And the user, Kiwi Harry, noted that the email contained accurate policy numbers, dates, and even links to view invoice that actually matched the real URLs.
Yes.
It looked terrifyingly legitimate.
That is the kicker, even though it came from a Proton mail address.
Which is encrypted, right?
Yeah, an encrypted email service often used by privacy advocates, but heavily used by criminals too. But the inclusion of that specific, accurate data makes it very hard for a layperson to just dismiss it as spam.
Right. It proves they had the goods.
Exactly.
So they have the goods. What exactly did they get? Because Prosura came out fairly quickly and said no credit card data was accessed.
That is correct. Prosura doesn't store credit card details on their end, so payment information was technically safe.
Okay.
However, what they did lose is arguably just as dangerous in the long run. We are looking at names, emails, phone numbers, travel destinations, and policy dates.
But there's a sensitive tier here too, right? This is the part that really worries me.
Unfortunately, yes. For customers who had actually filed a claim...
So if you had an accident in your rental car.
Exactly. If you filed a claim, the breach included driver's licenses and images related to that claim.
Driver's licenses.
Right?
I feel like we often gloss over that when we hear about breaches, but that is the absolute golden ticket for identity theft.
It is extremely high-value data. Think about it. A credit card gets stolen, it can be canceled and replaced in 24 hours.
Right. The bank reverses the charges, you get a new card, your life goes on.
Exactly. But a driver's license, that is a primary identity document.
Yeah.
It is used for Know Your Customer or KYC checks at banks. It's used for setting up phone contracts, for applying for personal loans.
So if a criminal has a high-res scan of my license,
they can bypass a huge amount of security filters at other institutions. They essentially become you.
Wow.
And unlike a credit card, you can't just cancel your date of birth or your license number easily. That data sticks with you.
That explains the massive operational impact too, because Prosura had to shut down new sales and their self-service portal for weeks. I don't think they posted a restoration update until mid-January.
That is a significant business disruption.
Massive.
You're talking about weeks of zero revenue from new sales combined with a reputational hit. It shows that even if you don't lose credit card data, the operational cost of a breach like this is immense.
And the scary thing is, Prosura wasn't the only one having a bad start to the year. This feels like it's part of a much bigger wave.
It certainly is. If we pivot to the broader landscape, 2026 is rapidly shaping up to be the year of the breach in Australia.
Yeah.
Because just a few weeks after the Prosura news kind of settled down, we got hit with the UX breach in February.
Tell us about that one. UX is a fintech company, right?
Correct. A Sydney-based fintech. And this one was arguably worse in terms of pure volume. They exposed the personal and financial details of 444,538 Australian borrowers.
Nearly 500,000 people.
Yes.
And looking at the technical notes we have here, the cause was entirely different too. Prosura was unauthorized access, an active hack. What happened to UX?
UX appears to be a case of severe misconfiguration. It wasn't necessarily a sophisticated break-in where some hacker cracked an encrypted code.
Okay.
It was an unsecured database, specifically a MongoDB Atlas cluster.
Right.
And it was left open and accessible to the public internet for at least 10 months.
10 months.
10 months.
That is an eternity in cyber time. And just so we're completely clear for the listener, when you say unsecured MongoDB cluster, what are we actually picturing here?
Imagine leaving a giant filing cabinet full of loan applications on the sidewalk outside your office. Unlocked 24/7. Anyone walking past who knows what a filing cabinet looks like can just pull open a drawer and take whatever they want.
Wow.
That is effectively what happened on the internet. It requires zero hacking skills to access if you just know where to look.
And the data haul was massive.
Huge. 141 gigabytes.
Good grief.
Containing loan applications, residential addresses, and again, those highly valuable driver's licenses. And it affected borrowers across 100 different lenders because UX acts as an intermediary.
So again, we have that supply chain issue.
Exactly. You might not even know who UX is, but your lender used them, and now your data is gone.
So we have a hack at an insurer and a wide open door to fintech. But looking at the list of incidents from January and February 2026, it really seems like no sector is safe right now.
It is completely indiscriminate. Look at January. The Victorian Department of Education confirmed a breach impacting 1,700 government schools.
Wow.
Then you have Regis Resources, which is a major gold producer, confirming a cyber attack.
Gold mines in schools. You seriously couldn't pick two more different industries.
Right. And let's not forget hospitality.
Oh yeah, Seagrass?
Seagrass Boutique Hospitality Group was claimed by the Kairos ransomware gang in February, and then the Aeromedical Society of Australasia was hit by Lockbit.
That is just a terrifying mix. Emergency medical services, restaurants, mining, education. So when you look at all these reports on your desk, what patterns are actually emerging? What is the trend for 2026?
There are two main trends emerging from this chaos. The first is a major shift in the endgame.
What do you mean by endgame?
Well, we used to see a lot of encryption-only ransomware.
Right.
Where they just lock your computers, encrypt your files, and demand money to give you the decryption key.
Yeah, the classic ransomware model.
Exactly. But now we're seeing a massive shift toward data theft and extortion.
So it's less about give us money to get your servers back and more about give us money or we tell everyone your secrets.
Precisely. It is what we call double extortion, or sometimes extortion only. The Prosura case is a prime example of this.
Right.
They stole the data and immediately started leveraging the customers to force a payout. They don't even need to encrypt your network if they can cause enough panic among your user base.
It makes total sense because companies have gotten so much better at backups over the last 5 years. So locking the computers isn't quite as scary as it used to be.
Exactly. You just restore from a backup.
But leaking the data, you can't undo that with a backup.
No. Once the toothpaste is out of the tube, you cannot put it back. And the second big trend, supply chain risk.
We've touched on that a bit.
Yeah, we saw it with Prosura affecting the Vroom customers. We saw it with UXitat affecting borrowers across 100 different lenders. You might really trust the company you are buying from, but do you trust the third-party insurer they use?
Or the fintech platform processing the loan in the background.
Exactly.
That is the really scary part for consumers. You can have great personal security, but if your partner leaves the back door open, you are still in trouble.
Which brings us to the big takeaway for our listeners. Why does this keep happening? Is the technology failing, or are we failing the technology?
Yeah, let's get technical for a second. What are the actual failing points inside these organizations?
Based on the deep dive into these reports, it essentially comes down to two somewhat boring but absolutely critical concepts: identity and access management, or IAM, and data segregation.
Okay, let's unpack those. Start with IAM.
Right. So in the Prosura case, it was unauthorized access. That usually implies weak access controls.
Like bad passwords.
Yeah, maybe single-factor authentication or credentials that were stolen somewhere else and reused. If you have strong IAM, like mandatory multi-factor authentication, strictly limiting who can log in from where, it's so much harder for an attacker to just walk in the front door.
And data segregation, that sounds like what? Putting things in different boxes?
That is exactly what it is.
Yeah.
It's about limiting the blast radius of a breach.
Blast radius, right.
If an attacker gets into your front-end web portal, should they be able to automatically access the entire back-end database of driver's license images?
Definitely not.
Ideally, no. Those images should be segmented, highly encrypted, and kept in a completely separate, highly secure zone.
Which didn't happen with UX.
Right. In the UX case, leaving a massive MongoDB cluster open to the internet suggests a total failure of both segregation and configuration management. Everything was just there, together.
It sounds like basic IT hygiene, but clearly it is being missed at a very high level.
It is often sacrificed for speed or ease of access. Developers want the data to be easy to query, to build apps faster. But in 2026, the price of that convenience is becoming unbearable.
Let's talk about that price, the aftermath.
Yeah.
Prosura responded by notifying the ACSC, the Australian Cybersecurity Center, and the OAIC. But there was a bit of a dilemma with their transparency, wasn't there?
There was, and this is a nightmare scenario for any crisis communications team.
Because Prosura eventually set up an incident page and confirmed the breach, but the attackers beat them to the punch.
Exactly. When the very first time your customer hears about a breach is from the criminal who stole their data, you have completely lost control of the narrative.
Yeah, you look terrible.
It causes immediate panic and severe reputational damage. It makes the company look incompetent or, even worse, like they were actively trying to hide the breach.
Now, Prosura did warn customers, eventually, telling them strictly not to engage with the attackers or pay them any money.
Which is absolutely the correct advice. You should never, ever negotiate with individual hackers as a consumer. But by the time they sent that, the fear was already sown.
And the cost for the company isn't just reputational anymore. You mentioned earlier that the legal costs are rising too. It is not just a slap on the wrist.
That's right. We really have to look at the regulatory context here.
Yeah.
In February 2026, right as all these breaches were unfolding, FIIG Securities was fined $2.5 million by the federal court.
$2.5 million.
Yes. For cybersecurity failures related to a breach from a few years prior.
That is a very serious number.
It sets a massive precedent. The courts and regulators are clearly saying that cybersecurity is not just an IT problem anymore. It is a strict legal obligation for license holders. If you fail to protect client data, you will pay for it. Literally.
So companies are getting squeezed from both sides right now. The hackers are demanding ransoms on one side and the regulators are demanding fines on the other.
It's a total pincer movement. And caught right in the middle are the customers, wondering where their driver's license scam has ended up on the dark web.
It's really sobering reality. So looking back at the Prosura incident and this whole chaotic start to 2026, what is the big takeaway here for you?
I think the Prosura breach is a perfect case study for the modern threat landscape.
Yeah.
It shows us that attackers are becoming much more aggressive. They will contact your customers directly. It shows us that non-financial data, like driver's licenses, is extremely valuable currency for identity theft. And it serves as a stark reminder that our digital supply chains are incredibly fragile.
It really does feel like the rules of engagement have just permanently changed.
They have. And I have a final thought for you to mull over.
Let's hear it.
We are seeing attackers effectively weaponize customer service.
Weaponize it.
Yes. By emailing the customers directly, they're trying to create a massive denial of service attack on the company's own support lines and HR teams.
Oh, wow.
It's fueled entirely by panic. So if customer panic is now becoming a primary weapon for cybercriminals, how do organizations defend against that? It is not just a firewall problem anymore, it's a psychological one.
That is a terrifying thought.
Yeah.
Because how do you patch human panic?
You can't.
That's something we definitely all need to consider. Security really isn't just about code anymore. It's about communication and it's about trust.
Absolutely.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive today. I want to thank you all for joining us on Tech Talks with Kinsoft.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
And listen, if today's discussion has raised any questions about your own organization's resilience, whether it's your access management, your data segregation, or just your readiness for an incident like this, we strongly suggest you head over to www.kinsoft.com.au.
That's www.kinsoft.com.au. Go there to discuss your security and IT needs before you end up as our next case study.
Great advice. Until next time, stay secure out there.